Hello and welcome to the Fairy Little podcast. I'm Marsha, also known as Fairy Little, and this is my podcast all about knitting and other crafty things that I might possibly be doing. I would like to thank anybody who is a new viewer for coming, and please hit that subscribe button, and any returning viewers, thank you so much for joining me again today. I am coming to you from the sunny Okanagan Valley in British Columbia, Canada, and it is finally some beautiful weather outside and I've gotten some knitting done. I have been really enjoying playing with my knitting these days. So I have a couple projects that I've been working on and a couple things I've been playing with. So let's get to it. Let's start with what am I wearing? I'm wearing the Liesel, and it is it's just a top that has pockets normally. I edited the pattern so it's, instead of just a top, it is actually a dress, and I omitted the pockets, and I knit this about 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but I definitely edited it. I ran out of yarn, so the bottom is done in a silk and the top is done in a silk and alpaca because I had to find something that would go with it, and it separates the colors quite nicely and they definitely go together. And I did a reverse crochet around the neckline just to give it that really nice finishing, but it also prevents it from sliding down. I found when I first had completed it, the weight of the dress pulled the neckline really far down and it stretched out the sleeves. So I just added this little detail and it gives it structure, but also gives it a little bit of beautiful contrast there, which I really, really like. This is definitely one of my favorite springtime dresses. It's a little bit itchy because of the alpaca, but I always wear like a tank top underneath, so that prevents all of the itchiness. Very comfortable dress though. So what have I been working on? To start, I have no finished objects. I have been monogamous-ish on one thing besides the things I've been playing with. I've been, just working on one thing specifically. So the thing that I've been actually working on is the Birkin Sweater, and it's from a kit. So that's what the picture looks like that comes with the kit. And it's with Urso yarn, which is really nice to work with. It is 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. So it's really, it feels like a harder wearing wool, but it's very nice to knit with and I'm really enjoying it. I just noticed a little bit ago that some of my stitches had fallen out, so I just have to double check that I picked them all up. So this is as far as I've gotten. At this point, there's 3 colors going at the same time instead of just 2 colors. I prefer, personally, when it's just 2 colors being knit at the same time, but the effect of the 3 colors is definitely worth the extra fendangling with the yarn. I find that I don't like my yarn to be floated for more than 3 stitches. So every 3rd stitch it gets tucked in with the next stitch that I'm going to be doing. So I find that that becomes very time consuming, tucking those stitches in, as well as I have this pattern also includes some baubles, and I am knitting it with the baubles. I'm just turning it sideways so that you can see that little bauble there sticking out. I am knitting it with the baubles. The baubles are a fun little detail, little knot sticking out there. Well, it's not really a knot, it's just a few stitches, but yeah, so it's coming along quite nicely. I'm enjoying the knit. It is taking a little bit when I have to do more than 2 colors together. But yeah, it's very pretty. I like the colors together a lot. And it was a kit, came with all the colors that are included in it. So those are the detail colors, and then this is the main color. So it has flecks of yellow in it and goes really well with these these colors. So I'm really impressed with it. It is, once I split for the sleeves, it's going to go much quicker because then I'll just be on one color. And the pattern so far is written really well. I have nothing to say that's, yeah, it's just written really well. And I'm just going to keep going on this. And look, I just pulled out all of those stitches. Everybody take a deep breath while I pick these up. Deep breath. Oh my goodness, the number of times I've pulled stitches out of things, it's just par for the course, I guess. There, got it. Now when I go back through, I just have to make sure that all of those were done, picked up properly. But yeah, so that's that. The other things I've been working on are swatches. I've been swatching like crazy. I have a couple things that I have been swatching. This is one of them, and this is really cool yarn that's is wool mice, and it's a DK weight, and it's a lot of fun to knit with. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. This and I'm doing a brioche stitch, so it's a single brioche stitch, and I'm just playing with it. It's a lot of fun. It's something that just knitting with it and playing with it, I've learned quite a bit already as to what I want to do with this, and I'm actually thinking I'm going to rip this out and cast it on again and just probably play with it even more, but with more stitches. But it's really nice yarn to knit with, and I'm having a really good time with it. And I'm using carbons. So these are the carbon needles. And they're fairly nice to use. They're working really well with this yarn. And I find that when you have a relationship between your needles and your yarn that works well, then you need to kind of stick with that. And these needles are working very well with this yarn. The next thing I've been working on is swatching. So I have been swatching some yarn that I have. It's Sweet Fiber and Super Sweet Sock. So it's 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. And here's my first swatch, and this is done with a 2.5 millimeter needle on the Haya Interchangeables, the sock set, so it's a smaller set. One thing I do have to say is that when the yarn is moving across the join, it does catch a little bit, so I have to just be careful and slide that through. It's not a big deal at this point because of where I am in the process, but I could see that maybe annoying me after a little while. I do enjoy these needles, as if you've watched the podcast previously, you know that Hayas are my absolute favorite. So the needle part, the shaft, is just really nice, and it's working very, very well. So that's the first swatch. And then this is the second, again on Hayas, but these are actually fixed and they have a very smooth join. And this is my swatch so far. I've been working on it. So yeah, that's coming along. This is my second swatch, and I'm just checking out the gauge between the two and what I'm interested in for as far as fabric goes. I do have quite a loose gauge, so even at 2.5 my gauge is still fairly loose. Here, I'll show you. And a 3. So the 3 is, you can tell the 3 is looser, but my 2.5 gauge is fairly loose as well. But I'm enjoying knitting it on both gauges. I think I like the fabric for the 2.5 a little bit better. But having said that, if you're knitting quite a large project, 2.5 could be possibly daunting. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, so that's what I've been knitting there. Today's episode isn't very long, so I'm gonna go into jibber jabber now. I find with doing a weekly episode, there isn't quite as much to show you at this point because I do have a lot of stuff going on outside of knitting. So I find that is just kind of where it is right now. But I do enjoy doing a weekly show, touch base with you, because then things don't build up, for example, but also then I can keep ahead of things and remember what's been going on. Into Jibber Jabber. Jibber Jabber is where I just talk about what's going on in my life and what's been happening. So if you're not interested in that and you were just here for the knitting, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. And for those of you interested in Jibber Jabber, here we go. This morning I primed the part of our deck that I had previously leveled. So we had a water claim. If this is your first time joining us, I had a water claim, and when we went in to fix the damage from the water claim, which was from our washing machine, they actually found some structural damage from when an addition was built onto the house. Before we owned it, there had been some slow leakage into the house, which had caused some structural damage. So we had to have part of our house lifted and new structural supports put in a couple different spots. In one place, they had to lift the part of the deck covering about 4 inches to put in a new post and all new supports underneath of it. So it's been a large project. It's been going on since October, and we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, which is amazing. But we had replacement pieces put in on the top of the deck to create new flooring, and then I had to add a leveling compound to level it, which I did myself. And then today I primed it, so it is ready to be recovered with we're using Deck Coat, which is a paint-on deck protectant, which is, I really like it, and it goes on very easily, and it's something that I will just continue to do every couple of years just to add extra water protection. We have looked at putting on a different kind of covering. It's just not something that we can afford at the moment, so we are just currently using the paint on deck coat, which works wonderfully, and I haven't had any problems with it. That was not what caused the water problems originally, so if you're concerned about that, it wasn't. It was when the addition was put on in the first place, they didn't put any extra structural support underneath the exterior load-bearing wall. So it was actually built not on the joist for support at all. It was built between the joists. So the weight from the wall created an indent in the floor where that was, and water pooled there, and then it just broke down the floor and the structure. And that's what happened. So all of that has been fixed. We have the drywaller. He is here today. He installed a good portion of the drywall already. So he's doing some mudding. I did what we needed to do because some of it was covered under the claim, some of it was not covered under the claim. So the things that weren't covered under the claim, I just took care of that. And then he is in there today doing all the mudding and taping and all of that stuff for the things that are covered by the claim. So that's happening. Hopefully by September, the whole claim will be dealt with. I still have to go shopping and purchase things that were wrecked during the water claim. There was a bed that was wrecked, a filing cabinet, a bookcase, that sort of thing that need to be replaced, and I just have to go shopping for those things. And that I'm holding off on that until we get the laundry room put back together and our bedroom put back together, because then we will have space to bring in the new stuff. Otherwise, right now, everything's just kind of stored in different areas that they don't belong. So once everything's put back where it needs to be, it'll be perfect. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But having said that, like, doing the extra manual labor stuff does take away from knitting time, and which makes me super sad because I love knitting so much. And right now I am so in love with knitting and the process and just playing. Like, it is just knitting. It's just knitting. So one thing I just like to do is just grab some yarn and just cast something on and just see how the yarn plays and work with it. And, you know, I do have quite a few things where I did cast something on that I had an idea, but it didn't play right. So now it just has to be ripped out. And actually, I did rip out one project. I frogged it. It was a shawl that I started designing last year at Sorrento, and it was part of the pie shawl class that I took, and it was the original pie shawl to the one that I have the charts. The charts are done. I'm putting them into the pattern, and then it'll be ready to go to test knitters. So it's a slow process, and this is kind of, at least this way you can kind of see how the process goes, because it's not always smooth and it's not always how you want it to be. And sometimes when designers bring out a pattern and say they're looking for test knitters, you might not know how much work has gone into it up to that point. And so I'm just keeping you aware of where we are and that we're still moving forward. It's just sometimes the process is slower than others, and this is just one of those times. But I pulled that pattern, pulled that shawl out, and put it back into the ball. I don't remember what this yarn is. I know that it was nice to knit with, but it's lace weight, and the pattern that I wrote up and will be available is a fingering weight. So that's just happens sometimes. And I actually felt really, really good pulling this out and not having it sitting there staring at me. I have a few things around me right now that do need to be frogged, that do need to be looked at, finished. But I'm happy with how things are going. So yeah, so that's that. This is a super short episode today. I have to work tonight. So last week, this is also why a lot of knitting did not get done, because last week I worked the longest week I've worked yet. I worked 3 night shifts and 1 evening shift. And the night shifts, there was 2 12-hour night shifts. One was a 10.5-hour night shift, and then one was an evening shift, which was 6.5 hours. But it was a lot of work and a lot of sleeping during the day. So on those days, I don't get a lot of knitting done. I do get a little bit done at work during it's like a 2 or 3 hour kind of window between paperwork and chores kind of thing. So I do get a little bit done sometimes at work, just the nature of what I do. If it's busy, then I don't get time. And if it's not busy and the house is quiet, then I can get a little bit in, which is good. We are going as a family down to Vancouver this weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I do believe is the plan. We're going to go to Science World, which is super exciting. The kids have not been yet. And I remember I went in 1986 when it was Expo 86 down in Vancouver. And I remember that I really loved it, and it was just an amazing experience. So I'm super excited to be bringing the girls down there for that. And then the following weekend, I have there's a sip and knit going on in Kelowna for the Okanagan Fiber Festival that's happening, Fiber Festival that's happening. So I'll do the sip and knit at the winery, and then the next day there's a marketplace and there's some classes. I'm not taking any classes. I'm just going to be attending the marketplace. I'm going with a friend, so we are going to have a great time. I am thinking, of course we will, because there's knitting and we're friends. And then the following weekend I have my book club. And then the weekend after that, I am teaching at Fiberphilia. I just sent off a bunch of photos to Kathy, who is running Fiberphilia in New Denver. And it's a brioche class that I'm going to be teaching. And so in the next week or so, I'm going to be playing with the outline of the class and just what I'll be teaching. I'm going to dial it back so it is bare bones basics. So when my students leave that class, they are going to feel confident in 1-color brioche. And if we can slide into 2-color brioche in the afternoon, I'll totally be flexible, but if we can't, then we'll just be doing the one color, and they will feel confident and happy with that. And then I will at some point run a second steps in brioche class, which I'm looking forward to as well. This class I'll be teaching on my own. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I have some Cascade yarns that I picked up for the class, so I'm going to have to be skeins, balling these up, winding them up as well, so that there is lots of options. I've got quite a few colors here for the class. I won't show you them all, but I have quite a few colors for the class, so that there's a lot of contrast and some colors that will go really nicely together. And I think that will be great. So that, I think, is it. I am going to be going to Knit City in September. I've already rented my place that I'm going to be staying in. So I rented a house, and there's going to be 5 other people staying in the house with me, which I think we have all lined up. I think we're just one shy of the total 6 people. But it did work out a lot better than staying at the atrium for cost-wise. It worked out better, and it's very close to where Knit City is being hosted. So we can even walk to and from, so we don't have to worry about parking, which is really good. And we are going to probably bring food for breakfast so that we can just have breakfast there and then head out in the morning. Registration is coming up very soon. I think it's the 10th of June. Don't quote me on that. If you're interested in going to Knit City, check out Knit City online. Just Google it and it'll come up. I don't know if I'm going to be taking any classes. I've looked at the class list as to what they have going on. There's a class that I would be interested in taking on Monday, but unfortunately I won't be there on Monday, so I will be arriving on the Friday. I can get into that as it gets closer, but at this point it doesn't look like I'll be partaking in any of the classes, but I definitely am going to be knitting like crazy and enjoying myself and visiting with all my friends. And yeah, so that's it for me for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you, and that you decided to spend some of your time with me. I hope you have an amazing week and an amazing weekend. Until next time.